In this video, I want to make a short message in which, first of all, I want to thank Justin. Justin is one of my subscribers. He's also Christian, I believe he's from the Netherlands also. And he remembered me that sometimes when you have certain issues and troubles in your life, it's basically the Father placing his shadow over you. Because the scriptures also talk about in Psalms 91 about God protecting his people with his shadow, with the shadow of the Almighty. You see? So first of all, Justin, thank you for it. Dank je wel, as said in Dutch. It really helped me. And I wanted to add something to that. You see? Often when people are praying, they want to have quick solutions, or let me say better. When we pray, we often come with an attitude of knowing what the solution is. So if we are going through a financial difficulty, we would ask the Father. I'm talking about the Christians now. If you're an unbeliever, someone in pagan religions, this doesn't count for you. Often Christians come before God, and Christians are asking God to give them a job or to provide for them financially so they can get out of that financial crisis they're in. And of course, with our own minds, when we look at a circumstance, we see a financial difficulty, we see that the financial difficulty has consequences, and those consequences are undesirable. So we ask the Father in Jesus' name to prevent those undesirable consequences from happening. We see a problem, and with our own understanding, we fabricate a solution, and then we go to the Father to vindicate that solution. You see, and don't get me wrong here. There's nothing wrong with asking the Father for finances when it's needed, okay? I'm not against that. The Bible isn't against that. Just realize that sometimes those quick solutions that we think are going to help us will not help us at all. You see, just like Justin said, you see, this is my hand, okay? Oh, as you can see here, this is my hand and my arm, and there's my shadow. The place where my shadow is a bit dark. It's not completely dark. There's a big light source from outside that's enlightening the room, but it's my hand, and here you see the shadow of my hand. You see, when you are hiding in the shadow of the Almighty, you see, it basically means that God will either allow or bring certain difficulties in your life to protect you. Now, this might sound a little bit strange to some people. Why would God allow or even bring certain difficulties towards me to protect me? Well, maybe I've made a video about this 2 years back, I'm not sure, but anyway, you're watching this video, so I'll continue about it. Let's say you are having a financial issue. I'm talking about finance because most people that come with problems in prayer have to do with finances. You see, it's the area where most people are struggling. Also, the rich people are struggling with finances. You see, you are thinking that preventing undesirable circumstances is a solution, but God, I just tell you this: God does not see your situation the way you do. You see, what you're seeing is a crisis now, whether it's debt or whether it's you lost your job and now you're in financial difficulty. That's what you're seeing, and you can see certain consequences, the ways things can go. And of course, the ways things can end up are not fun. But that's what you're seeing. That may also be what other people are seeing. There are things that you don't see, and there are things that other people see, but other people won't tell you. And let me tell you like this. Sometimes the problems that, now is it not sometimes, always the problems that God allows into your life, or the problems that He brings to you, they are there to reveal the character of those that are around you. Let's look at Job, famous example. Job was rich, he was blessed, he had 10 children, he was married. He was basically a royal figure in his country. The moment Job lost his wealth and Job became sick, the circumstance did not change immediately. For years, Job remained in that condition. He has lost all his children, all his 10 children that died. He lost all his possessions. He lost his influence. And his wife also left him. He was basically divorced, poor, and sick. I mean, that's a very bad place to be. During the time that Job was in that circumstance, the true motives of his friends and his countrymen became visible. When Job was still influential, Job was the richest man on earth at the time. When Job was the richest man on earth, you see, everybody treated Job well. Everybody had good things to say about Job. And many people were kind towards Job. But they were not kind towards Job because they had a good heart. They were only kind towards Job because they wanted to, their agenda was they wanted to do kind towards Job so that they might get something from Job, or to prevent Job from attacking them. Because people that have power and riches, they can harm you and get away with it temporarily. So those people around Job, his countrymen, his family, and also his friends, they were evil-minded towards Job. They were ill-will towards Job. But because Job was in a good condition, they had no room to show their ill will. So what happened? God allowed Satan to attack Job, to take away all Job's possessions. And read the book of Job carefully. When God allowed Satan to attack all that Job had, a lot of thieves and robbers began robbing Job. Now listen, where did all those thieves and robbers came from? Those thieves and robbers were always there. It's only when God allowed Satan to have his way that those thieves and robbers received a chance to show who they really are. You see? Because how did those thieves and robbers know how to rob Job? They must have known Job, and they all came on the same day. So, and how could they have known that God has taken away his hedge of protection from Job? The only way they could have known is if they were involved into the occult, or they went to witch doctors and they received a confirmation that they could go their way. So that's one thing. And remember, Job had thousands of slaves and employers. So often often you're not aware who is watching you. God is, you see. And then that's why God allowed things to go wrong with Job. But it was really beneficial towards Job because Job began to see how those people really are. You see, Job even began to realize how his own children were. That his own children had no interest in God, that his own children were just partying and basically were living like Satanists. You know, folks, we need to start looking at things that way. When God delays, let me say, is delaying from our perspective. From God's perspective, there is no delay. But I'm talking to you on a human level now. When God delays a solution or an outcome in your life, He is doing that to deliver you from satanic people. And when I say satanic people, a lot of folks automatically would think about pentagrams, people that wear in black, people that do sorcery, and warlocks, witches. There are other types of satanic people also. I'm going to read a verse from 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14 and 15. Or better, let me start at verse 13. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13 till 15. Yes. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Now, so there are false apostles, deceitful workers, who will masquerade as apostles of Christ and as ministers of righteousness. And it's no great thing, so it's something common, something that often happens. You see? So listen, anyone who does not trust God and does not operate from trusting in God, who doesn't operate from faith, they are satanic. Why? Because they are placing their trust in external factors, in their own actions. They trust upon their own works, their action, self-righteousness. So when someone is operating from self-righteousness, you see, they are the ministers of Satan. And such people, when things are going well with you, they are fine with you, so-called fine. When things go wrong with you, they are often the first ones to appear towards you. They couldn't find you when things were going well with you, but when things go wrong with you, they're the first ones appearing. And they will even debate with you, trying to blame you for what has happened to you, even when there's no objective evidence that you did anything wrong, you see? Or they will use things from your past to justify why bad things are happening to you. You see, and that's what Job's friends were doing. You see, and they were doing it so-called with good intentions. So-called good intentions. You see, what the book of Job has learned me is that, and also what, not only Job, also what the life story of David has shown me is that God will often delay the solutions in your life just to develop your faith and trust in Him. You see? Because remember, King David was also persecuted before he was, well, David was 30 years old when he became king of Judah. And 8 more years there were struggles before he became king of the whole Hebrew nation. From his 17th until his 30th year, King Saul was fighting him, persecuting him, and not only them, also his own family members were persecuting him. You cannot read anywhere in the Old Testament where David's relatives, father, or even close friends, except Jonathan, stood up for David. You see, you can never find them, and when David became king, you never read anything anymore of David's relatives. Only about a cousin of David, who also advised David's son to rape his half-sister. So, what you can learn from that is that if God would have dealt with Saul earlier and David would have become king when he was 20, then there would have been a lot of negative people around David who would ruin his rulership and that would bring harm on many people. So God allowed David to go through the wilderness to be persecuted. He allowed David to be on the run for 13 years, and in those 13 years, David's faith was developed. David married several women and had children. So David grew and became stronger in that period of time. You see, and when David became king, even then there were struggles, but God allowed those struggles to endure to weaken the enemies of David. So the attitude of wanting to have quick fixes or the want solutions immediately, God never promised immediate solutions. Sometimes God will bring immediate solutions, but there are times where God will not do it. Why? Because listen, God sees you different than you see yourself. Look, I mean, take out these jackets. Okay, look. When you look at your circumstance now, you are looking at today. For example, today is the 18th of May 2015. It's 18:55 or 6:55 p.m. GMT plus 1. That's the time zone of the Amsterdam. Okay, so that's the moment now. So when I look at me, I see my circumstances now. See, God does not look at me the way I do. God sees me in the here and now, but God is also looking at me at tomorrow. God is also looking at me at this moment 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and even 50 years from now. You see, God sees the whole picture. God sees your whole timeline. And He also sees the issue you're going through now. But God does not only see you and the issue, God also sees all the other people involved in the issues. God also sees all the demons involved in the issue. And God has a clear map of how all things are connected together. And God also sees that you want to avoid undesirable consequences. Because God also sees that from your point of view, those undesirable circumstances should be avoided. And it can be that you're right. But God also sees that if those uncomfortable circumstances are prohibited, that there will be other negative circumstances coming to you that you're not aware of. Or God can see that if you go through those uncomfortable circumstances, that you will grow and that certain people will drop you and leave you alone. You don't see that. So when God is looking at you, He sees the whole picture, and that's why He is in the bed. He alone is in a position to determine what would be the right solution for you. So that's why when you pray, see, you you are honest about your expectations, about your desires. However, you put God's will above yours. So eventually, God's will is being done. Because listen to me, God can turn your circumstance around within 24 hours. You see, within 24 hours, God can turn everything upside down. God can turn everything around. If you're in the zero today on your bank account, God can turn it around that tomorrow you have $500,000 on your bank account. If you're homeless today, God can turn it around that tomorrow you're living in a townhouse. If you're single now, God can turn it all around within 24 hours. However, often we desire such changes, quick changes that we're done with a certain issue, we're done with a certain circumstance, we're done with certain consequences. We want it. Just remember that God is sovereign in the sense that He sees everything. And He also knows you better than you know yourself. You see? So let me give an example of me, okay? When I was, let me see how old I was. I was late in high school. I was like 17 years old. I felt quite insecure when I was 17 years old about my future. I knew my past was a mess, I knew my boss was abusive, so I didn't bother about my boss at all. And I wasn't that much focused on the present either. When I was 17 years old, you see, I was really concerned about my future. Because from my point of view, it seems like every option I took, there were some problems. Like there were things that just wouldn't stop. So I was thinking, I need a prophet. Because there were churches where you had prophets speaking out things on people's life. I thought at that time those prophets are inspired by the Holy Spirit. It was only later on that I found out that most of those prophets were not real prophets of God. They were under the influence of the demonic spirits. Anyway, I didn't realize that at the time. I just wanted to have answers. So I wanted to know what lied ahead of me. I wanted to know what's going to happen in my future. If there's harm going to happen, how can I prevent it? Which decisions I should take, where I should go to university, who I should befriend. I wanted to figure it out. So one guy told me, Rashid, you don't really need a prophet. Then there was a teacher that told me, Rashid, God doesn't work that way because if you're going to one of his prophets who ask about your future, it's divination. So God doesn't work that way. So I thought about it, and it's true. So I let it go. So I stopped trying to figure out what would like ahead of me. I just let it all over to God. And listen to me. It was during when I let go of that, people, I began to learn Japanese also. I began to learn Spanish. I began to learn all kinds of different languages. I also began to draw more, to take my interest and passion for photography develop inside of me. And I began to have contact with all kinds of people through the internet who were photographers and artists also. On social media, I expanded like crazy. I had a desire to connect with people all over the world. You see, that also happened. I didn't have any control upon it. It just happened. You see, God was working. And I have to be honest, Satan was also working, because when God is working in your life, Satan always tries to sow some bad seeds within it. So there were those bad seeds I had to deal with also. Nevertheless, you see, I never really was concerned anymore about what would happen in my future. And now I'm almost 24, within a few months, and I have to admit that even though I could not figure out everything that would happen, I'm glad that I was not able to find out everything that would happen, because from my 17th year till my 24th, that's about, let me think, that's about 7 years. A lot of, tribulations came, a lot of persecutions came, but also a lot of good stuff happened. And I'm being real now. If when I was 17 years old, if I could have seen myself today, when I was 17 years old, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have recognized myself. For real. So, did I really have to worry about what would happen in the future? Nope. Were the issues that I was facing back then, were they nothing? They were issues, they were real. God saw that. However, God had a better view of circumstances than I do. So, I wanted to give that example of me, just to encourage you people to trust God with your future. You see, don't go to, clairvoyant people, to witch doctors, and people that read palms, or don't trust your horoscope. Just trust God. And listen, just because God is not giving you a quick fix, a quick solution as you expected, that does not mean that God is not taking care of the stuff that are in your life. God is taking care of all your issues, but He's taking care of them in a manner that you are not expecting. Because remember, God's ways are not your ways. God's ways are much higher than your ways. Just like the heavens are higher than the earth, that's how high God's ways are from your ways. So God's methods are far superior than from yours. You see? You can't measure the distance from the ground here till the heavens. No, you can't measure it. You see? That's how infinite superior God's ways are from yours. So that's why I'm telling you to trust God. And there is another thing, people. Maybe I already told this in the beginning of this video, but I need to repeat it because this is something that many people tend to forget. I also have forgotten it from time to time, so I'm not accusing anyone. The ministers of Satan, they don't have endurance. The ministers of Satan, they have demonic spirits with them, however, their resources are finite. Okay, so they will get tired from working upon you. They'll get frustrated, you see. And God often allows certain circumstances God allows certain circumstances to continue for a period of time. It's to tire your enemy so that their true motives will be revealed unto you. You see, there were certain people around me of whom I never expected that they could be used by the devil, and I found out later that their motives were very ugly. You see? And it's only because certain issues in my life endured, in the sense that it's only that because certain issues took so long that their true nature were revealed. You see? For example, I'm in this apartment now making this video. Okay? I'm not shouting, I'm not bothering anyone. But there's a woman in this apartment who is now murmuring. By the way, she's the only one in the rest of this apartment. Me and her are the only one here. But that woman is, how do I say it? She's murmuring, because again he's making a video again. However, when I'm making a video here, she gets upset. She begins to murmur. She begins to complain. However, when she and another person that often visits here, when they are talking about witchcraft and when they are complaining about other people, okay, then it's all fine. But when I'm talking about God making a video here, it's how do I say it? It's a problem. You see, and by the way, if I'm making a video every day here, that's none of her business basically. Because it's my YouTube channel, these are my laptops. So why is she complaining? The thing is, I found out she's an agent of Satan also. You see? Today I began to re-examine stuff and I realized she's an agent of the devil. Why? Because she does not want to trust God. She does not want to surrender her problems to God. But she does want to have a certain type of control upon her children and upon other people. Also upon me. And if you don't comply with her manipulation, she becomes angry and she begins to curse you and begins to prophesy upon you that something bad will happen to you, and then you will know that you should have listened to me. That kind of stuff. You see, I will not disclose, I will not reveal who she is. It's not necessary. I'm just making clear to you guys that the ministers of Satan are often the people that are closest to you. And they come disguised as the people who have the best intentions for you. Just test the spirits. I mean it, test the spirits. Because if someone's attitude is not in line with scripture, then they should not have any influence in your life. They should not have a place of honor in your life at all. And if someone becomes angry when you are humbly walking with God, that means that they are ugly, psychopathic individuals and very dangerous to be around. So you shouldn't be emotionally involved with anyone like that. Well, I hope this video has inspired you, and remember, I am reading your guys' comments. If you asked a question a while ago and I still didn't reply, I'm sorry for that. I'm busy too around here, so I'm not ignoring any one of you. And well, that's it, guys. Trust upon God and let Him work this out for you. And don't worry about those ministers of Satan, because just like the Bible makes clear, therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. So the end of those ministers of Satan will be according to their works. That's why Jesus said, you will know them by their fruit. Now, works and fruit are different. However, the works are a result of the fruit. Okay, let me explain this to you. The fruit of someone is the spiritual tension that you feel around them. And that spiritual tension is confirmed by the actions they are doing. So if they have bad fruit, then they will also have bad works. That's how easy it is. Now, this being said, y'all, may the grace of Jesus Christ be with you, and be blessed.